In this next panel discussion, we have two very eminent people. The featured guest here today is Shri Mohan Reddy Venkatramana, B. Mohan Reddy, I think I should say, BVR Mohan Reddy. Many of you may have heard of him as the founder of CYIENT, somebody who's well known in innovation circles, has been involved in NASSCOM, several policy-making bodies, and his new book called Engineered in India is not just a memoir, but I think it is a critical overview of industry in India, how it has developed over the years, and he's had a ringside view of this process, having, of course, been educated both in India and in the US, and having held several leadership positions in industry. So we will hear from him on his journey and his commentary on the state of affairs in India in terms of where industry is, where it's going. And in order to facilitate this conversation, we have Shri Jayesh Ranjan, who HLF audiences, of course, are no stranger to. He is a very key member of the HLF team. He's been a chief patron, facilitated festivals over the years, and actually takes a very active interest in how each year the festival shapes up and how it comes to be. So may I invite Shri Mohan Reddy Garu and Jayesh Ranjan Garu onto the dais. Thank you. So over to you, Shri Jayesh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Usha Garu, and greetings to all of you, and welcome, BVR Garu.
Thank you, Jayesh.
I have always called him BVR Garu, so I'll continue doing so. First of all, many congratulations.
Thank you.
Your first book, I hope this has encouraged you. The reception of this book has encouraged you to start thinking about your next book and maybe the third book thereafter. For those who have not had the pleasure of going through this book so far, please do pick a copy. This is a very significant book, Engineered in India, published by Penguin. Particularly so because there are lots of perspectives about Indian industry. And in fact, my first question is also on those lines. Many people today feel that India has missed the bus. Typically, when India is compared to China, many of us know that both are large countries, similar kind of populations. And till about 3 decades ago, in fact, as early as 1987, the GDP of India and the GDP of China were almost the same. But look at where they are today. Their GDP is today about 16 trillion. And in India, we are at 3 trillion. And we are still talking about when will we reach 5 trillion. That is the goal. While China is already 3 times beyond that already. And of course, by the time we reach 5 trillion, they may be in another stratosphere altogether. So lots of people do say that India has missed the bus. Industry has let us down. Our industrial activities are more copycat in nature. There's hardly anything original happening here. So that is one point of view. But when you read this book, you will see a different point of view. And of course, much of it is written from BVR Garu's own experience, which is about creating a company called CYIENT, making it world-class, delivering world-class products to global customers, etc., etc. So BVR Garu, my question, let me put it directly to you. Where does that optimism come from? When we read your book, you are very bullish about India. Of course, your company is doing well. There's no doubt about it. But is it that you are just a kind of an island in that ocean, and around you is not that rosy a picture? we still need to be very, very kind of cautious about what is going to be the future of India. So how do you really look at India beyond your company? Since you have led NASSCOM, you have held important leadership positions in CII. How do you see the industry as a whole, and what gives you that sense of optimism?
Thank you, Jayesh Garu, and good morning to my audience today, especially Jayesh Garu. So nice of you to come on a Sunday morning to be a part of this fireside chat. And thanks for that very interesting question that you asked. Certainly what you said is very true, that we did not do as well as China. We're far lagging behind China. And one could go back into history to find what the reasons were. And one reason I keep always saying is that's the price we paid for a democracy versus an authoritarian rule. Everything that the leadership said was being implemented, but we took a different path of being a democracy, and I feel very delighted, happy about it. So therefore, it took longer than what it is for us to be where we are today compared to, it will take longer than what it took China to be where they are at this point of time. But look at the situation today, what's happening around the world. India is the fastest growing, largest economy in the world at 8%. Even the latest numbers that I saw from China, China will not grow more than 4.5% this year. And they have several more challenges themselves. But we'll leave that for a minute and look at a different perspective on how is India doing at this point of time. If you went back, and I mentioned about this book of Malcolm Gladwell, all about how success comes to people, it's also an environment which makes the difference in terms of success. I belong to an age and times when in the 1980s, even for that matter, early 90s, for everything that had to be imported into India, had to be having a license. And for a license, we had to go all the way to Delhi, fly to Delhi to get a license for it. And there used to be a department called DGTD, Director General of Technology Development. Pardon me, with all the respect to people who occupied those positions, neither did they know about technology nor about development. That was the environment that we had. More interestingly, there used to be two chairs sitting outside the office of the Director General, a very nice gentleman called Mr. Balraj Bhanot. Sir, he was not an IAS officer. And so these two chairs, one had 4 legs, and the other used to have 3 legs. The 4-leg chair, which could be easily handled, was reserved for the peon of the office. And the 3-leg chair, which you had to just push it towards the wall and sit down, was for the guests like me, who were waiting for an hour to 2 hours doing it. Seriously. So more interestingly, the environment used to be so horrible. With all due respect to this gentleman called the peon, he used to smoke something called the BD. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It's tendu leaf, which is rolled up. And I keep joking with people that cigarette smoking is injurious to health. Injurious to health in the long term. It doesn't impact you immediately. Whereas BD smoking is injurious to your health immediately because it's so nauseating, you could throw up so quickly. So that's an example I'm trying to give you in terms of how difficult it was. So there's a fairly large change in the environment. As people like me started up companies, we started getting into this new regime called STPI, Software Technology Parks of India. Very progressive way in which the government has supported the growth of the industry. So overnight it won't happen, the momentum has picked up. Please don't mistake me because I'm saying this with Mr. Jayesh Ranjan sitting here, is you look at the state of Telangana itself. Number of initiatives in terms of promoting the industry. If you take only one part of it, I will not get into TSIC and so on and so forth, take only the startup ecosystem. We have a T-Hub, we have a V-Hub, we have a Task, we have T-Works, we have TSIC, 5 of them. to me, these five are the five fingers which make the whole hand so strong for me. And that is certainly the best in India, but equally good are some other locations too, whether it's the government supported or non-government supported. So the end result is that makes me feel that the environment is changing quite dramatically. And added to that, if you look at one other perspective of it, is the number of startups that have come into the country is also dramatically increasing. The last number we saw was for 2022, it's 74,000 startups.
It is about 88,000.
88,000, sorry, sir. Yeah, 88,000 that were there, which were registered with the DPID, Startup India ecosystem. So therefore, that speed at which people are coming into the startup ecosystem is the one which will definitely benefit the country. I'll just make my last point. In addition to this, all this is that India enjoys the enormous amount of benefit of demographic dividend. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this word. It primarily means that the population of a country is more than 51% in the age group of 16 years to 65 years, the country is supposed to be enjoying demographic dividend. And today the situation is that India has 62% of its population, which is between this age groups of 15 to 65, which means the working age population is very high. So there are, and we have seen whenever countries have had demographic dividend, they certainly have done very well economically. A good example is South Korea, a good example is Japan thereafter, and then China. So a combination of all these factors, I'll come to another factor called technology in a little while, Jayesh Garu. I feel very, very optimistic at this point of time to say there's great future for this nation.
Sure, BVR Garu, but I'll pick on the point of demographic dividend. You have also spoken about it in the book. And for those who do not know this, BVR Garu also is the chairman of the board of IIT Hyderabad and IIT Roorkee, and also the chairman of the board of T-Hub. So you deal with lots of academic institutions. You're also heading the task force, which is kind of preparing the roadmap for under the new education policy for technology, education, etc. But do you think India is really in a position to capitalize on that demographic dividend? Because many people, on the contrary, feel that it is going to become a demographic liability instead of a demographic dividend, because the colleges, the educational institutions, the mentoring resources, the overall ecosystem through which a young adult, so to say, who is ready to join the workforce, the kind of preparedness that is given, let us say, in the West or in countries like Japan, Korea, or even in China for that matter, that is completely lacking here. Of course, there are islands of excellence like the IITs, the ones that you chair, etc. But if you look at, let us say, the smallest college in the remotest corner, how does you continue to feel still optimistic about the fact that we can use our demographic to our advantage?
Thank you, Jayesh Garu. Certainly, you know, again, not because you're sitting in front of me, I'm saying you are the best civil servant I know in this nation right now. And you know the complexities of running this nation. Let's give a round of applause to Jayesh Garu. So you know the complexities that are involved in it. You just called out a few of them. First, certainly, I think there is a big concern with number of people to say this demographic dividend could translate itself into a demographic disaster if you don't do many things. So let's start with how do we get a number of people into a knowledge-based country, into a knowledge-intense country, as opposed to just saying education is for education. I think lots of reforms are happening in that area. There's a new education policy called the NEP 2020, which certainly pushes everybody to say that we have to change our curriculum, our pedagogy, the way in which people have to understand technologies. So therefore, I think there is a fairly large effort that's going on in making sure that the change will come. What you said is right if you don't do it. The second thing that has to happen is, as much as I talked about demographic dividend, the further one is, the challenge associated with demographic dividend is right now, we put 1 million people into streets of India for jobs every month. which means that we need to create 10 million jobs every year, or just fast forward it for 10 more years, you'll see that you'll have to create 100 million jobs in the next 10 years. And what we have also seen around the world is net new jobs that are created in any nation. If you look at them, 60% of them get created by startups, small and medium companies. Only 40% of jobs get created by large companies. So the result is there's enormous amount of need for the startup ecosystem to pick up. And that's what we talked about a little earlier too. We talked about 88,000 startups being there in India at this point of time. If you do some of the back of the envelope calculations, you'll see that we'll require at least 500,000 startups every year now. If you do these 500,000 startups, 5 years thereafter, about only 5,000 of them will survive. And another 5 years thereafter, maybe 50 of them become medium to large companies. That's the natural progression. So therefore, we got to make sure that education improves, our ability to innovate has to improve. We have to create an ecosystem for making sure the startups come by. And I think a combination of these will certainly help even the rural areas, because I know for sure, Jayesh Garu, the initiatives that are happening in the state of Telangana too, we are certainly reaching out to the rural population. I think as much as we were doing an event here in Hyderabad, I think the Honorable Minister was doing an event in Kakatiya Sandbox in Nizamabad. So I think the awareness levels in the rural area is also increasing. So I'll continue to say I'm very optimistic that there's great future for the nation.
Thank you. Thank you, BVR Garu. The book that we see before us, Engineered in India, this is largely about BVR Garu's own experience of creating this wonderful company called CYIENT. For some years it was called Infotech, now it is called CYIENT. So for those people who are either too lazy to read this book or perhaps have got habituated to getting bite-sized news, what kind of key management lessons would you like to impart from your entire lifelong journey of building this company? Maybe 3 or 4 key very key managerial lessons, entrepreneurial lessons for the benefit of our audience.
Sure, Rajesh Garu, thank you. So this is a fairly large effort for somebody like me. I grew in the corporate world. I ventured into education in the recent past, all right. I spent a lot of time on the higher education and more specifically on technical education. So getting to write a book was not at all an easy task. And certainly somebody has rightly pointed out, Mohan, it required a lot of courage to write the book too, because there is fairly large amount of personal anecdotal information that I disclose to people in the interest of making sure the story is properly woven around. The book actually has got in 2 parts I've written it in. Part 1 is more in terms of a chronological way of how we progressed. That's about 9 chapters to start with. How do you start a business? And even before starting the business, I actually have another distinctly different profile that I literally worked for about 18 years. And when I turned 40 is when I became an entrepreneur. I started this company. So in those 18 years, I did not live idle because, I had this objective very clearly laid out. I will ultimately become an entrepreneur. I will start a company. That was very clear in my mind. So I worked towards that particular goal. So therefore, one of the lessons I have, the first lessons I have for my friends, is that I'm not saying become an entrepreneur today. But if you want to become an entrepreneur, think about getting those building blocks in making sure that you are prepared when the opportunity arises. What did I do for the first 8 years, especially when I worked for somebody else, is I had a role of operations management to start with. I moved then from there, you'd say how difficult it is, but I did it, is that I became a software developer. I used to write software programmers. I'll challenge, nobody would have heard about this language called autocoder. It was going on to a computer called IBM 1401s, and I used to write programs in IBM 1401 for Bosch. And then was the big move I made further, because this objective, the focus was the same. Focus was become an entrepreneur. I'm sure you'll see the same story whether you read Mahabharat or you talk about Saurav Ganguly. You have to have that focus in terms of what you achieve. Uh, I think in a recent interview I was watching Saurav Ganguly saying that if he is batting and when he is facing the bowler, the only thing that he sees is just the ball. He says he doesn't see the bowler, he doesn't see the umpire, he doesn't care about the crowd, no noise comes to his ears, none whatsoever. And I think the same thing holds good with Mahabharat. Arjun says the same thing, that he sees just the eye of the parrot that's there, nothing other than that when he wants to shoot his arrow towards the parrot, because it has to go and hit the eye. So is the case with an entrepreneur too. So honestly is my case too. I had a singular objective. I need to become an entrepreneur. I built brick by brick. So therefore, the first message I have is that please, if you want to become an entrepreneur, you don't need to become now. Become an entrepreneur, which means you think whatever you are doing, you own it, and work towards that goal is my first lesson. The second lesson is that I keep saying, people have to definitely move towards a pursuit of excellence. That is something which nobody needs to teach you. You don't need to go to a class. It's an absolutely simple thing called attitudinal shift. If you believe that I can do the best, trust me, you will do it. You can always tell yourself, I can do better. You can do much better than that. I write my story in class 7, the marks that I got, my mother had fairly serious doubt whether I would ever pass class 7 itself. And I was so scared about her, I actually hid my mark sheet that day. She screamed at me. She was wild, absolutely. And she said, first thing she said was, why are you not doing well? The second one is that I have a sister who is a year elder to me, who became a medical doctor. So she used to come first in class. So if she can come first in class, why not you? When a girl can come, why not a boy? This is the girl versus the boy competition. And thereafter, certainly I went back to think very seriously. Why is this? Because the threat that I had was, she said, if I didn't do well in the school, I'll go back to join my paternal grandfather, who was a farmer in the village. She said, that's the only way that you will go and do your work. So therefore, it was a big threat to me. I said, therefore, I looked at my sister, looked at it very seriously at what she does so differently than me. I was so peripheral, but whereas she was very deep, she was very hardworking. And so therefore, the attitude was, you can excel if you start working hard. If you put your heart into it, you can excel yourself. And that was the theme that ran all along my life so far. In the book also, you'll find the same. We did not, actually, if you look at a startup, people say you have to have a good idea. Idea has to be very unique. It has to be different from others. You have to have the right funds, the right team, and it has to be a large addressable market. Then you said, start off. You got a company going. But honestly, that's not good enough. You have to have your passion in your belly to say, I have to struggle every day. If you're doing job for somebody, there's somebody else behind you who says, my boss. There's, in a startup, as an entrepreneur, you're the boss. So therefore, what did I learn out of this is you have to have a continual pursuit for excellence. So therefore, what did we do continuously? We continuously innovated. Service offerings changed from every 3 years, there was a new set of service offerings which are moving up the value chain. That's how we could retain our customer base. We have 99% of our customers today have not moved away from us. There's just 1% which actually we dissociate because the tail becomes long. And they don't grow. That's the reason why we keep chopping the tail from time to time. So therefore, what have we innovated continuously? And the second one is, we also made sure that we took care of our people very well. No denying, we created wealth. It's a public information, so I can share with you. I started this company with 20 lakhs of my equity. That was the money that I funded the company with. The company today is valued at in excess of about 10,000 crores. So we created value for just not ourselves, but also several shareholders who came down the line. Not only the shareholders, equally important is several of our employees also became crorepati's. Actually, there's RSU scheme which is running in the company right now, which is valued at 300 crores for just top 100 leaders in the company. It's an average of 3 crores. But I think, it's not average. If you look at the top, the bracket is going to be 18 crores to 1 crore, I believe. So what do you do, therefore, as an entrepreneur is just not one effort that goes on. It's a continual effort that has to be there to make sure that you are distinctively different, you have new innovations that are coming to you, and you continue to have that passion to say, we need to grow. And that's, I think, the 3 stories I will share and stop there, Jayesh Garu.
Wonderful, wonderful, BVR Garu. So, as I asked you right at the beginning, that was a bit in jest, but now I would like to ask seriously, are you thinking of a follow-up book, or are you planning to write essays or blogs, or what kind of literary engagement do you want to pursue hereafter?
Very honestly, Jayesh Garu, I'm a little tired right now. It required about 3 years of effort to write the book. Thanks for asking that. But we also realized one other thing is that, book requires a certain amount of promotion. So this is keeping us a little busy right now. But what is very gratifying is the type of feedback that has come about the book. Of all the people I can quote openly, and I know somebody who is dear to him is also here, Dr. Y.V. Reddy, who is the governor of Reserve Bank of India, he called and he said, Mohan, I read the book from first page to the last page. It's outstanding. But more importantly, he said, why did you talk about just entrepreneurs? He said, it's a master class in management, a master class in leadership. He said, Mohan, you don't need to do anything either. I've just highlighted in the book wherever the relevant paragraphs are for leadership. You just extract it, cut and paste them. It'll be a new book for you. So that's very gratifying, especially even hearing from Dr. Y.V. Reddy Garu. So therefore, there's a very positive momentum, Jayesh Garu. Yeah, but I'm not too sure at this point of time whether I will do one more book for sure. There may be some offshoots that will come out of this book. That's still a possibility.
Wonderful. Look forward to it. So, one slightly provocative question from my side now. See, you have spoken about excellence, application of mind, focus, and of course, sharing wealth, creating a team and looking after the team very well. Particularly in the context of what is capturing the headlines of business papers and even regular media these days. What is the importance of ethics, governance, moral standards while doing business? We have seen how a company is trying to fudge accounts and kind of overvalue its shares and causing loss to ordinary shareholders. This happens quite frequently. Well, what is happening is very topical. It's not that I'm signaling someone out or anything. It happens quite frequently. So what is your take on these kind of things? Are these peripheral or are they also equally central and important?
Thank you, Jayesh Garu. Very good question, very dear to me. To me, values are first. That's what we keep saying in our company. FIRST, we play also on the acronym. That's fairness, respect, integrity, transparency, and sincerity. They are the 5 values that we value most. And every presentation of us, you'll see it that the values are the foundation for our company. So that's how much I value the values, Jayesh Garu. And I keep saying that the value of a person is sum total of the values of the person. And sum total of the values of persons and organizations is the value for the organization. So therefore, our tolerance in terms of people not meeting our values is absolute zero. And several people asked me this question saying that, Mr. Reddy, we have now businesses in about, you're aware, Jayesh, 19 countries around the world. We employ about 34 different nationalities of people across the world. So the cultures can be different. The cultures can be different from one country to the other country, one race to the other race, one geography to the other geography. But I keep saying values don't change. Values for humanity remain the same. So to us, the tolerance to any amount of non-conformance is very poor. And so is the case with the startups too. Several people say, no, no, Mr. Reddy, we will do these things later. I keep saying this is like, if you're a small plant, if you don't do it, when you become a tree, it's no way that you can rear the tree to your liking. So I think I would emphasize to my friends who are here, who are becoming entrepreneurs, please make sure that your values are foundation for your organization. Then you move from values, you go into governance. Governance is very important. You got an equitable to all these stakeholders. These are some of the things which are very cardinal principles to build a company which is sustainable. A few people here and there will do it, Jayesh Garu. We are seeing those examples, not even the past they've happened. Yes. You saw the big example. And I have several theories around it, but I won't get into that for now. But say that, for a startup, values are extremely important.
Great, BVR Garu. We have approximately 15 minutes more for this session. And I would now like to open it up for audience questions. We have a fairly engaged audience here. So do we have mics to pass around? Yeah, we do have. So we'll start here and then...
individual, I wish Mohan Reddy ji my best wishes, as I have seen him since the day he has founded. Today the subject is science. So he is true today with his word, whatever he said. I only today want to say that he has a professional team. He will continue to bring many of his experience in the field of information technology. With this word, I'll close my...
Thank you. Please pass the mic here.
Hi, BVR sir. Like you, I too run a business nowhere of the scale that you do. But question, and I was looking for a very tactical answer here, was when you built CYIENT, there wasn't a huge amount of public information. You were trying to sell internationally. How did you kind of build the muscle for self-learning that kind of helped you grow your company? And again, just my prompt here is that what would really help me as a younger founder is how tactically would you do it? Like, how would you break your weeks, your months, so that you were always learning and growing in such an uncertain time?
Thank you.
So, BVR, let us finish two more questions, and then we'll try to answer all of them together. Yeah, go ahead. And then please give the mic there again at the back.
Thank you. Actually, sir, I don't have questions, but I want to share my experience.
Yeah, but be very brief about it.
Sure, sir. I am Salma from Kakinada. I have been working at CYIENT for 14 plus years now. Thank you. I will complete my 15-year service in the month of March. So, I have come from Kakinada all the way only to meet our chairman, sir, to attend this event and share my experience. To share my experience about this book, Engineered in India. So, it's very honored to be here. Firstly, I don't know who entrepreneurs are. After I reading this book, I have decided that to become a woman entrepreneur.
Very good.
It's really.
Good luck to you. Good luck
Thank
to
you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Salma.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's. Two of the comments don't require any response, but
Sure.
except to convey our good wishes to them.
Right. I only, Shantilalji is my shareholder too, that I understand, and one is the other one is employee. And the fact that both of them come and speak about it is a reflection of what we have done to all the stakeholders, whether it's employees, our investors, our customers, attitude. If you say, I have to be the best, you will do everything. You'll find time for that. You probably have to make sure that, you might have to probably sacrifice a few things. It's only a question of how do you prioritize us. But it is not difficult at all, because from the times that we lived in 1991, 1992, especially going and selling, engineering as a service to companies in Western world was not easy at all. Still in 1991, 92, without any hesitation, I'll say that several people back in US used to think we only had elephants roaming around streets of India, snake charmers were all around the place. That's what the impression that they had. Especially if you look at engineering as a service, it is actually product design, product physical design. We design aircraft engines, we design aircraft fuselage, we design nuclear power plants. These are core technologies that they are giving to us in making sure we do the rest of the work for them. So therefore, it's a tremendous amount of effort that's required. As I said, I wanted to be successful. I'll do everything possible to succeed. At one point of time, I used to spend 100 room nights outside India just being the frontline salesman, obsessed with going and meeting those prospects for us. That's what you need to do. I can't give you one answer. No answer will fit everybody because you're an entrepreneur. You should find that for yourself. If you need further help, come back to me. Send me an email and I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, there and
Hello, sir.
yeah, then next here and then you. Yeah.
I am Sanjay Floria. I am a professor. So what will be your career advice to young students, sir? People who are doing their MBA, what would be your career advice? Thank you.
We'll take two more questions here and then the lady on the fourth row.
Good afternoon, sir. It is an amazing kind of an information and the conversation. I'm Divakar Singh. I run an IT services company, predominantly business growth solutions, which I provide. You have mentioned that it has to have more focus as an entrepreneur. That's good, but as an ecosystem driver, like we have more emphasized what I believe as on the technology obsession. At the same time, other areas like sales, definitely I think you are, you know that HCL and other, those types of sales acumen, that part of sales, marketing, business development kind of impartments are not there past few years, where we need to have center of sales and marketing excellences then center of excellences. Now, the way the situation is changing in the competitive world, do you feel the shift has to be little, give overall kind of a focus on various other aspects as entrepreneurs to be successful?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. We'll come back. After this, we'll request BVR Garu to answer these three questions. Then we'll move to this row where Sanjay, then yourself, and you will be the last questions. We also need to kind of wind up in another 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Sir, good afternoon. There are two reasons that I am here. I am Leela. I am also from CYIENT. I'm a scientist and a proud scientist, I can say. And I'm the live example for the values first, which our chairman, sir, drives at. I've been in the company from 18 years, and probably if I have energy, I will still continue for 10 more years. And the first reason I'm here is both my sons are from this school, and I'm a proud parent of Vidyaranya. The second is obviously to meet Sir in person and probably have his blessings, to have a chit chat with him, and to learn his experiences on writing this book, which was very, very overwhelming. One question, sir, for your internal associates at Scient, what is your suggestion? How can they apply entrepreneurship for the internal associates? Thank you.
Want me to
Go ahead.
answer?
Yeah.
Sure. So the first question was, what's my advice for career advice for the MBA students? I guess there's nothing called one size fits all for me to say that they should become entrepreneurs. I think the key thing that I ask people is, they need to ask the question for themselves: is what's the purpose of my life? Please ask your students to ask this question to themselves, and they'll find an answer for themselves. I'm not saying entrepreneurship is not the only way that people have to progress in life. You become a scientist, you become a teacher, you become a musician, you become an actor, you become a cricketer. Decide on that and then focus towards to achieve that goal. I think that's my piece of advice, career advice to any of the youngsters. Once they decide what they want to do, and I'm sure if they want some more amount of mentoring, it can be done. But ask them saying, what should I do at this point of time is like, shooting in the dark. Now, let's come back to the second question that I have, is about Diwakar Singh talked about we're paying a lot of attention to technology at this point of time, and we are not paying attention to the softer side of building businesses, whether it's sales, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. Diwakar, I think that's not necessarily true. And I personally feel that we have to pay more attention to technology at this point of time. Because some of the things that we are seeing are good, but they could be better. It's had to be deep technology has to come by. Because we are now labeling this decade as tech aid at this juncture. So there'll be technology will be in the forefront. And we are seeing there's no relenting on this technology, whether it's computers, communication, sensors, and algorithms, all four of them together. They seem to be moving at a pace that I think you will see more and more amount of disruptions that will happen. So therefore, we should definitely pay attention to what you said. I think the best of business schools are doing that. We have ISB in Hyderabad. There are several more good business schools there. IPE is there. University of Usman University has an MBA program. So I think these are the things that even technologists can learn. And to me, again, learning is not one time. It's not one degree. It's a continuous learning exercise, and it's becoming more and more intense right now. It's lifelong learning is what we keep talking about. So therefore, I think, you should not be concerned. Let's still emphasize in technology, get the other skills. My last question is from Leela. Thank you very much, Leela, for all the nice things you said about the company. And me personally, thank you very much for helping me build this company. It's people like you and many others who are here are the people who helped me in terms of building science so far. What's the advice I give to people in the company to be scientists? There's two parts to it. One is, if you truly have a good idea and you want to be an entrepreneur, go up to the boss, send me an email saying that I have an idea, we'll support you. That's a certainty. But the second part of it is that not necessarily you have to be an entrepreneur to start your own venture. So long as you're there within the company too, and that's one thing, if you've not read the book, please read the book. I emphasized during my first 8 years of career, I used to think I owned this place. I used to, because salary will come irrespective of whether I do it well or not too well. It doesn't matter. But what was more gratifying to me is I made this commitment to Lala Charitramji in my first job. I used to produce 25 diesel engines per shift. That's 3 shifts of 75 diesel engines. If you multiply it by 6 days a week that we had, 450 diesel engines had to be produced every week. I used to be so restless if I were to miss my target. Not because Lalaji would scream at me. The simple reason is that, look, why am I here? My purpose of life is lost if I don't keep up my commitment. And lastly, I'll make this statement. They're saying that, you must be hearing this quite a bit in the company too. We earn the trust of the customer. So how do we earn the trust? Trust to me is in very simple terms. is under promise, over deliver. That's what I think you, as an entrepreneur in a company too, you do the same, you earn the trust of people.
Thank you, BVR. I'm just trying to figure out what time do we have to vacate the hall? What time is the next session? 12:30, yeah, that's what it says. I wish we were slotted just before the lunch hour. We could have stolen some time. So we have unfortunately just five minutes left. So I mean, we can permit a couple of questions, but don't have very long questions. And BVR Garu, keep short answers, please. Yeah. So give here to Sanjay first, and then to here, then
Thanks.
Then finally to Shanta. Four
Thanks, Jayesh.
questions, and we wind up.
Thanks, Jayesh, and BVR, congratulations. I congratulate on behalf of the Pan IIT as well. In fact, I think you have been the harbinger of technology from OMC days. I know you because I was one of the first guys at Sonata to bring in AutoCAD into the country. And having interacted with you at those days to actually look at OMC was a pleasure. Beyond that, I would like to just get back to the FAST acronym that you have given, and like you to actually, you have always been an exemplar as far as corporate governance is concerned. I've seen Murugu in your board when I first came to your AGM somewhere in 2004 or 2006 as Infotech Enterprises, and now it is CYIENT. Now, I would like to know that given FAST as something that has been your driver right since your DCM days, how do you see it evolving in the VUCA world with CYIENT now as a new entity that you have created, you have rebranded, and what are the new opportunities that you see going forward in the values and the different areas? Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Give it here and then to that.
I'm Nagendra, advocate. Instantly, I chaired shareholders meeting of sister company of Infotech Enterprises a decade and a half back on behalf of High Court of Andhra Pradesh, the then High Court of Andhra Pradesh, of which, in fact, Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy was chairman, and I successfully amalgamated that company with Infotech Enterprises. Beside that, Dr. Mohan Reddy, in fact, rightly is emphasizing the need for values. And if only our political system were to be more accountable, transparent, and if our education and health were to hold around the democratic processes, and police station were to function properly, and the judicial system were to function effectively and efficiently, and the whole governance structure, if transparency and accountability were to be brought in governance, I'm sure things will be much easier for Dr. B.V. Reddy kind of people, and probably would have had probably about tens of hundreds of such kind of companies in various walks of life. So what is that we need to do to reform the political process, and collectively and individually? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Arvind. I work as a product scientist at a startup. So I also have a cognitive science background. So as you rightly said, we are growing in terms of businesses, startups, and economy. I just want to know your take on multidisciplinary research, because in the long term, for a country to go, we need a good research. So I just want your take on it.
The final question from Shanta. But BVR Garu, while the mic is being brought here, I suggest that you engage with the young person outside the hall. Sure. This is a very serious question, and could be kind of can give him really new meaning to life, and could be career defining for him. So do spend more time with him rather than giving just a 10-second answers. But do answer these two questions. Both speak about values, etc. You can club the answer together, and let us see what Shanta has to ask.
Okay. Mohan, thank you very much for this interaction. And I have read your book, by the way.
Thank you, Shanta.
And I have no idea that you had that whole problem of Glasgow. And did you get outside help for that? That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, I'll answer that. Good, thank you. So let me go back to the first question of Sanjay on values that we have. I think in the VUCA world, what new values will come? No, Sanjay, values don't change. They are core to us. Environment is changing. Environment is becoming volatile. It's uncertain, ambiguous. All that is happening. But values don't change. Values should not change. That's what I said earlier too. That across the world, where we have several offices, cultures are different. But culture can be different, but values cannot change. To the point Mr. Nagendra said about, things would have been better if probably we would have had easier way to do. I think certainly the answer is yes. But here's the good news. The good news is that things are definitely getting better. The fact that India now climbed from a position called 81 to 40 on the Global Innovation Index, the country ranking as such, in last just about 5 years, itself is a good understanding. Good progress that we have made, good progress that we have made. We have scrapped about 40,000 processes in the country right now. So ease of doing business is improving. So we'll see more amount of entrepreneurs scaling much faster. So the young man, multidisciplinary research, we can talk about it outside.
So thank you.
So to the last question of Shanta, she said, did we...
We'll take it off.
10 seconds answer I'll give her, sir. We did not get no external help at all. We handled it all ourselves. And I think what is a good lesson there is all about leadership. How the leadership handled a crisis of that nature, which is global in terms of the impact, and also impact which is much larger because all our customers were named in that article that came by. Thank you, Shanta, for asking that.
So there is nothing more left for me but to thank BVR Garu for this brilliant session and to thank all the wonderful audience for making it so lively. BVR Garu will be available outside. There's a section where authors are encouraged to meet their audience. Maybe you can buy the books which are there in the pop-up store, get it signed by the author. But thank you everyone once again. Thank you.